All right. Hey there, folks. We are live with the Philadelphia Stage Combat Workshop. Today we are chatting with another one of our awesome guest instructors, Brandee Laird. I am so stoked that Brandee's going to be with us this year. Last year, for folks who may come to the last workshop, Jacqueline Holloway did a bit of parkour stuff because her background is primarily stage combat, but she's been learning and getting to know a lot more about parkour. Brandee is a parkour expert. Brandee has been training this for quite some time, so I'm so freaking excited to have her with us this year. Just as we're getting started, I just want to make sure anyone who's tuning in, if you have any questions, feel free to put in the comments below. We can answer them live. So make sure you put any questions you have in the comments, or even just say hi as you're tuning in. Let us know you're here. If you have any questions after the fact, like if you tune into this stream or see the recording of the stream after the fact, you can always send any questions for the workshop or for Brandee, for anybody, to this email address real quick. Don't forget to register as a student if you want to get a chance to work with, I swear, the freaking flip this camera does is always, anyways. But yeah, don't forget to sign up as a student because it's freaking awesome. Yes, I'm going to be a geek. Yes, we're still trying to get this hashtag going because for those who don't know, the Social Distance Showdown started October. We're finishing October. We're kind of sandwiching October in this awesome combat kind of sandwich. So hopefully we can get that started. So first off, Brandee, how you doing?
Hello. I'm pretty good.
How's it going out there in Seattle?
It's actually, today's a nice day. We've definitely come into autumn, so it's been very, very rainy. So I'm happy that it's not that right now, so I can actually be outside. It's just nicer to do these things out here. So yeah, it's good. I mean, as far as the overview, the surface level stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same as everywhere else at this point in time.
Yeah, that's true. So, I've been saying the word parkour a lot, and so for those who are complete laymen who do not quite know what we are talking about, could you give us a little quick kind of brief overview of like what is parkour?
Yeah. So the elevator pitch that I use is basically parkour is the practice of learning how to use your body, specifically in regards to how to use it to overcome obstacles. So it involves anything from running, jumping, climbing, crawling, swinging, moving on all fours. It's just a study of locomotion for what you can do. Moving beyond that really brief, sort of sterile description, parkour, as far as I'm concerned, is just as much a discipline as it's an art, as it's now a sport, where essentially at this point it's an umbrella term that fits somewhere under obstacle-based movement, but isn't quite some other things that you use obstacles for. So some people think about like obstacle course racing is very popular now. Ninja Warrior is very popular. Those things are in the same bucket I would put as parkour, but the beauty of parkour and the inception of parkour is all around using spaces that aren't necessarily built for what you're doing and reimagining those spaces and realigning your own, I guess, filter to look at those spaces differently. So, while most people are going to see a bench and they're going to either sit on that bench or not sit on that bench, someone who practices parkour might do any number of things. They might climb all over the bench, jump over it, swing around on it, flip off of it. And so once you get past that general description, it's really up to you what it means for yourself at this point in time. Like, yes, there was, when it was really brought to the greater world by some of the original practitioners of parkour. Even before that, they called it l'art de déplacement. So sometimes you hear it called the art of displacement, or even just down to ADD. And there's also a cousin discipline called free running. So you have l'art de déplacement, parkour, and free running, and they're all just family members of the same idea, which is go outside, go to spaces, move your body, make challenges, and improve yourself through those challenges. So for me, I take it more to, I guess, one of the more original ideas where there's a couple phrases that go along in the community, and one is to be strong, to be useful. I think you can do a lot of things to be useful, but utility is one of my favorite parts about parkour. I love knowing that I am more capable, and I love being able to utilize even just really basic skills to either make my life easier or make someone else's life easier. But nowadays, there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, you'll see coming out soon. There's a show called World Chase Tag that's finally moved to the U.S. So a bunch of parkour athletes went and just did professional chase, and they call it World Chase Tag, but it's mostly like it's parkour. It's parkour as far as the athletes are concerned. And then you see the more artistic style with free running and flipping and all these things. So um, that's just good to get for a quick overview. There's a lot more history to it. Even before Large and Play Small, there was the natural method from George Herbert, basically this badass who was in the French military, and then he went off to do traveling, and he noticed, wow, all of these indigenous populations are way healthier than my European compatriots. Like they can run better, they're in better health, they're in better happiness. And he looked at that and says, what is it that is keeping these people so healthy when they don't have all these magical Western medicines and all this stuff? And he's found it was just moving their bodies, running, swimming, learning how to fight, learning how to throw, and using their bodies that way. So he was really inspired by the idea of altruism and not just exercising for aesthetics. His whole thing was like taking it out of aesthetics and into utility. So I'm a big fan of that version of parkour, at least.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So in when we originally asked you to come on with us and hang out with us for this weekend, I got a chance to do a little research. I kind of there's a lot of articles that you've done or a lot of interviews that you've done, which is freaking awesome because it's like we need more information out there, particularly from women and women of color and things like that. But in particular, there was one article that I found that had a very interesting split of terminology, and the person asking me the question asked you like, "What's the you queen of low-line parkour?" And then you kind of talked about the difference between high-line parkour and low-line parkour. Can you tell us a little bit about what that difference is?
Yeah, sure. So that the highline low line, that's something that came out of us being the org I've worked with for a long time, and one of the founders of is Parkour Visions. And yeah, again, this was 2007 is when we finally got established as an org and we started teaching people. And at first, what we would get was people who already knew about parkour. So they had seen some of the videos, the few that were out at the time, and they kind of were savvy to that. But then we started seeing people who maybe didn't know but felt comfortable enough because there was a facility now. Mentally that's a lot easier of a step than just this stuff where people jump off buildings. Like, oh, I can't do that, right? And so the terming of low line comes from taking things that were already happening in parkour movement and just giving it a name. And those things are basically movement that involves many points of contact as possible, reduced airtime, and as much control of impact as possible. So while most people think and they look at parkour as like big jumps, jumping from rooftop to rooftop, sometimes big flips, big pushes off walls, I would say that's very high line movement, right? You're very committed to those motions. They're very explosive and powerful. And it is very, very sexy and amazing to watch, but that's not all of parkour. I mean, so much of the time is spent, crawling under things, sitting and spinning. It can be a lot more gentle than people most of the time give it credit for. And so by consciously splitting out to high line and low line, we're able to basically communicate that parkour is not just what you see. In fact, most of the time, especially in the media, like the Hollywood style movies and even some of the most watched YouTube videos, those are things that people have been doing for years, right? They didn't just go out and like, oh, let's just go and do this. No, they've been training, and a lot of that training involves being low to the ground, being in great contact. The reason that it's, I don't know, it's a little bit pretentious, so I have a hard time with the whole queen of low line thing. But part of that is just because that's the way that I like to move. If I can go under rather than over, I'm probably going to choose under. I like to stay close to the ground. I like to be very fluid and smooth and link my movements together in that way. So I just spent a lot of time doing it. And so I've become known for that style of movement. In a way, it's interesting because people get used to different styles of other things. Like, there's different styles of yoga. Like you have your hatha and vinyasa and your yin yoga, different styles of kung fu, different styles of all these things. And parkour is no different. It's just so new that we don't actually have uh, true schools of thought at this point in time. Like, and also I think it's more unified in a lot of ways because it has grown during the age of information and the age of the internet, where we can share things a lot more quickly. Things can get integrated into someone else's style more quickly, and so most people can do most of the things that are considered the fundamentals of parkour. Like, no matter where in the world you go, people are going to practice what's called the precision landing, for example. It's a jump where you try to land exactly one place and stick it. That's universal. So while there are a lot of those things that are universal, it's kind of like the foundation. Outside of that, people go all kinds of different ways. Now, I'm a nerd for parkour. I've been teaching it for a long time, so I think more about this than probably a lot of other practitioners. So I'm seeing like the sky. I call them sky monkeys. Like people, you get them in the space, you get them anywhere, and then suddenly they're just up somewhere. You're like, oh, the sky. Like, there they go. It's swinging off the branches or the things or what have you. There's a lot of people who like the really fast movement, like fast straight lines. That's a very high line thing where you just do in the air most of the time. So yeah, low line is just a way to approach it, especially if you are injured or older or just getting back into movement or don't have any interest in that big flashy stuff. Like there's still something to do, because ultimately parkour is, you have a body. If you can move your body, you can learn to move your body better. Start there.
Yeah, like that's freaking awesome.
It is.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions, that things like whenever somebody hears parkour, I feel like they hear or think of one of two things. Either one, they think of Assassin's Creed. And I know that look. I feel that in my heart. Or what was it? The Office or
The
Parks and Rec?
Office. It's The
Yeah.
Office. Parkour. The funny thing about that clip, so first of all, it's haunted us ever since. Like, it's just, you cannot escape it. But the second thing is, it actually did a great service. So even though it was goofy and they were jumping into the trash can or whatever it was, honestly, the definition they give of it during that episode is not terrible. And it has exposed so many more people to just the word parkour than anything else ever has. So yes, it's like a constant battle against, well, you don't really say parkour when you're doing parkour. Actually, most of us, we joke about it now too. I'll catch myself doing it, seeing someone like, oh, parkour, because it's become this great joke. But it actually did us a really good service, because just the word, like, it's a French derived term. It's, how do you say it? Park hour. This is part of why free running came into play in the first place. Free running was actually just a translation decision from a particular interview from one of the practitioners who had been part of the original group of practitioners. Like, it wasn't just one guy who started this. There was like a group of young people. And then because of his version of what he was doing involved more fluid and beautiful, then free running became that, right?
Okay.
But yeah, it's or another one of the common ones is the Casino Royale, the first scene of Casino Royale. That's a big one for people.
Yep.
In fact, that contains one of those original practitioners. He did the stunts for that.
Cool.
So yeah, people think it's like, again, the backflipping off rooftops, jumping off roofs. Everyone thinks it's a big, heavy impact, and it certainly can be. Like, there's a lot of people who have pushed the boundaries really far with that. But you can't do that every day. It's just not sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of what Stage Combat really wants to be. It wants to be something that can be sustainable, because movement training, etc. Like, yeah, we want sustainability, because we need to be able to sustain over lots of different shows, rehearsals, etc., etc. So leading into that, why do you think, or how do you think parkour training can be important or helpful specifically to actors?
Yeah, well, there's a couple aspects to parkour training that I think are particularly useful. One of them is just falling skills. I'm sure stage combat actors often practice falling, especially if you get into like more of the stunt world. where you're doing those big break falls. But even just the ground level, like no wires, no special equipment, knowing how to throw your body around and be okay is a really valuable skill. So, it's not exclusive to parkour. You see the same like ukemi and falling practice in jiu-jitsu and aikido and all these other things. But I do think that between knowing those skills and knowing how to practice them, especially on things like concrete, right? I'm falling on concrete, and being aware of the objects around and being able to utilize those differently. Because so much of stage combat and those types of scenes is you need awareness of everyone and everything going around you, chaotic or not. So it just gives you another sense, or even a heightened sense of just of your environment and what's around. And that's why I would say the other benefit is because, again, parkour is how do you move your body in the space that you're in, or for a challenge that you see. So, y'all can't see it, but in front of me there's a couple little fire pits that are pretty sturdy, and a table that's not at all sturdy, and then some bushes, and then a drop. So these are things that I know because I've observed my location. And so even though I don't need that information right now, I've already collected it. And I've collected it, even in first time in the environment, you can collect some of that information pretty instantaneously, or again, subconsciously. And it's going to allow you some reactions that maybe you didn't even plan to have, but that are going to still benefit you. So, I guess that's a general. Also, it's cool. Like, parkour's cool looking, right? Like vaulting over stuff, being able to like jump off walls and do these like acrobatic movements. It's cool. It's interesting to see.
Heck yeah.
And yeah, just the greater connection with your body, because a lot of us spend a lot of time just upright on the 2 feet, and doing like I'm standing on my feet and then my arms are doing things. But parkour is like your arms become legs at some points. Like you have to be able to switch back and forth with coordination. So just that alone can create more fluid, natural looking actors, in my opinion.
Very nice. Yeah, So speaking of the workshop and training and actors, let's talk about the classes that you're going to be teaching us. Yay, transition.
Let's go.
Yeah. So the first class I got on the list that you sent that we have on our schedule is ukemi, the art of falling. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, ukemi is a term that comes from traditional martial arts, and actually was brought to the parkour world as a term. Like, we already been practicing falling, but Amos Rendau started becoming like just a falling scientist. Like that's one of his jams. He's very very nerdy about a lot of parts of parkour, but that was one that he was the first to say, hey guys, like let's look at this even more closely. Like let's break this down. So ukemi just means to receive, like to receive an attack or to receive the ground. And that's really what the practice is. It's like, how do I not only do like a break fall, because it's pretty easy to learn a break fall as far as like you can find the information places. So what I really want to bring to that workshop is not just like the fundamental, like this is how you might, break your fall going backwards or going forwards, or this is how we roll in parkour so they can quickly get to our feet. I also want to go into some of the ways to push your practice to a more realistic level. Now, obviously, when you are performing, you want to be in as much control as possible, but that's not always the case. Again, humans are chaotic. Things happen. Surfaces get slippery. Things happen. So when we're practicing for falling, it's very easy to stay in that comfortable range of like, I'm in complete control here. Like, this is fine. And that's good just for the neurological learning of it. But I like to get closer to the chaotic feeling so that I'm preparing myself also like in that way. Like, your heart rate goes up a bit. You're like, oh, that felt like a fall. Because the idea is that you practice this enough so when it does happen, you don't have to think about it. You're like, should I roll or should I do this? No, your body just knows it. So I just want to share some ways to get closer to that more realistic practice, even by yourself, with like super, super simple stuff. As far as like objects and equipment, like a water bottle, or a towel. Towels or t-shirts are amazing for practicing falling. It's kind of ridiculous how easy it is to fall with those things if you know how. So yeah, that's really what that's about.
Very cool.
Specifically the practice of more, like, as well as some of the techniques.
Yeah, like between, because I don't know if you got a chance to see the chat that I did with Kevin McCurdy yesterday. If you get a chance to, It's freaking awesome. Kev is great. But yeah, between like you, what your classes are doing and what Kev's doing, like there's so many freaking awesome classes that we've got going on. I'm like, I want to sit in on all of them. Oh my gosh. So the next class we have on the list is creature movement. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I decided that because the thing is actually you mentioned Jacqueline Holloway before. She's the one who invited me or mentioned me to this, and so at first I was like, well, how you all are the state combat masters. Like I'm over here in the on the concrete jumping off of things. Like yeah, I don't know where it's gonna fit in. But then I started thinking expanding past just the stage, but also things like motion capture, right?
Right.
So I've done some motion capture in the past, and a lot of times what they want you to do is motion capture. You have to be an animal, right? Like you're like the dragon, or you're like who knows what you are. So it's the creature movement is something that I do for fun on my own anyway. I'm sort of a clown. By sort of, I mean there has been times where I might have been an actual clown, but we're not going to talk about that currently. But there's a study to embodying the movement of an animal. And even if you're not playing an animal, like even if you're not going to go out and like motion capture a bear or be in a bear suit or what have you, having this idea of what it looks like to move as if you are a different creature can be really beneficial to a lot of characters. Like I think about really like feral, like barbarian characters, and they're just like like down because they're mimicking the creatures that they see or mimicking the predators. So just some things on that. I'm gonna have to admit that that's one that I've never taught before. I've thought about it. I've taught a little bit of pieces of it, but this for me will be a new presentation where I basically spend the time thinking about all the things that I've learned and gone through, and then codifying it somehow to hand it to whoever wants to see it out there. So a lot of ground movement, creature movement is like quadrupedal, crawling on all fours. Most people when they think about crawling on all fours, they think immediately hands and knees. We don't do hands and knees here. Hands and feet, like what does it look like to be an injured animal? Like all of these things. So we're just gonna mostly it's like a laboratory. We're gonna do some body science on that one. But yeah, let's get in the mindset. Like, what does it look like to get a little feral?
Yeah,
or a lot feral. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, we've had in the past. It's been a while, but in the past we've had some other folks who've done kind of mocap work and have done similar kinds of ideas. So this is just right up the alley. That we love this kind of stuff. So yes, more. Cool. And then the last class that we've got is realistic firearms handling. So what are you going to talk to us about with that?
This is probably the one I'm the most excited about, just because it's a huge pet peeve for a lot of us. So part of the description, I mean, I made a really lengthy one. It's like one of the easiest ways to lose your suspension of disbelief is to watch someone doing something that like they don't actually know that thing. Like the character, like supposed to be like this badass, like if Tomb Raider's a great example. Like Lara Croft is supposed to know what she's doing, but then she's like waving these guns around all the time with her finger on the trigger, and you're just like cringing inside because you know better. So there's two ways to use that though. Like you can, if you know your character's not supposed to know something, well, it's good to know what is supposed to happen. And if you're supposed to be an expert at something, it's good to know what that's supposed to happen. So, I know a lot of the stage combat is dealing with swords and sticks and these types of things, but again, firearms do come into a lot of combat scenes, and it's a study of mine outside of parkour and such. In fact, we'll probably get to kind of how that ties into my life and what I'm about right now. But I've done a lot of studying and looking at, first of all, how to hold it and function it and move around. There's the thing that people do in the movies. There's like a corner or something, and they go, they just jump out. Like don't do that. Don't do that. And yes, you have the limitations of whoever is your stunt coordinator and all these things, and there's things that work for Hollywood that look way better and like bigger and like all this like big, but there's still some things that I think can really be valuable, especially for the people who again know what they're doing and are watching, and they say, oh, that person knows, like that. Now that's an actor who did their due diligence. So I want to go over some of the really basic like holding, like how to hold things, even just the difference between the like this kind of thing that people do versus like like a good handhold. A little bit of threshold stuff, like if you can, again, if you have the opportunity, don't just jump out. So stuff like that. It's like where does it look good, kind of, to people who don't know any better? Where does it look good to those who do know better? And where can you like fiddle with it to come in between? I do want to sneak in some like actual rules and skills though, because that's
Perfect.
what I'm about.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I've been capturing screen caps, and you'll see there's a couple. There's actually not a couple. A lot of reaction videos for on YouTube. It's like Navy SEAL reacts to John Wick, or like this guy reacts to this thing, and it's actually pretty entertaining, and it's very very helpful if you're trying to look at that kind of movement. Because like John Wick, for example, it's those who don't know John Wick. He's a character who is like a big gunslinger. He's like, bah, 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 like everywhere. It looks amazing. It's so cool. It's actually a really really good work. And for that character, it works well. But it's not. There's a lot that's like, oh, you would have just shot yourself, or like you're just things that wouldn't really go down. So
Right.
just something a passion of mine, I guess, to look at that.
Yeah, and I agree. It's definitely something that in the stage combat community we definitely need more understanding of. We've got different things kind of already kind of working in that realm, but more often more of them doesn't hurt. We need more understanding of like this is weapons. It's weapons. It's violence.
Yeah,
and we need exactly. So very cool. So let me just see. So yeah, we've been chatting for a little while, and what exactly are you up to during these crazy quarantine times?
Yeah, well,
What you got going on?
Well, I mean, the first 3 months was sleeping. That was amazing. I loved it. Oh my gosh. I don't have to be anywhere. I don't have to talk to anybody. This is great. Because keep in mind, like, I've come from teaching parkour, 14 years or something. That means like all week long, running around the city, jumping, showing people. So it really gave me a chance to recover, like deeply recover. So that was very, very nice to like get all that catch up, and believe it or not, I'm not an extrovert. I'd rather like go out when I have to, and then come in and take all my time. So it was just really nice to reconnect to a lot of things that I had let go, even though the stress of not working, because again, like we couldn't have parkour class. A lot of
Oh no! So
sorry,
I think
are
you're
you
back.
still there?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't turn off. I don't know how to. Didn't even think about do not disturb, so my calls wouldn't come in. And so what was I saying? COVID, recovery, parkour, introvert. I don't know, just to reconnect. Oh, that's what it was. To reconnect to my some things I had let go, or things that I had put to side because I had to get over to that other side of the city and do the thing. So that was great. That's my favorite part so far. But now it's coming to the point, especially as the phases open up, where there are a couple more classes again. So.
Oh boy, Brandee, if you can hear us.
Hear you. I'm sorry. I can't tell my friend not to call me right now.
Okay.
I am back.
Okay, so I can hear you, just letting you know I can't quite see you.
Let me try the cam. I'll turn it off and turn it back on. Oh, that's so frustrating.
No worries.
I did not know I would get calls. Is there any way to go back and change that otherwise? Here we go. Camera.
There we go.
Okay,
All right, so
no, I'm just trying to flip it around, yeah, to the front and see if we can make that. There we go. Haha. See, I'm tech savvy enough. Yeah, hopefully he doesn't call again. So, at some point in the old quarantine, I decided that I wanted to really start pushing my project forward. And that project I call Citizen Operating Systems. And the idea behind the project, and actually now the LLC, is really just to empower people to various civic actions, and to fight the diseases of civilization, and to just just call for extraordinary actions by ordinary citizens. So there's a couple pieces that go within that. One of those is just education. I'm a big fan of people knowing how to take care of themselves and each other and wanting to do so. So one of my first, I just got all the paperwork and some of the licenses, so it's not really a business yet. And also, it's one of the hardest things to do is start a business in a pandemic. But I want to run things like Stop the Bleed classes. Have you heard of Stop the Bleed? Stop the Bleed.
Not.
Stop the Bleed is an initiative that got started in, I believe, 2015 by the Obama administration, and essentially it is a program or a series of programs or an initiative to teach the public how to like literally stop the bleeding during a traumatic event. Because most of the time when people die from these horrible massacres and shootings, it's not necessarily the injury they got, it was because they lost so much blood when someone else can help them. So Stop the Bleed's an initiative, and then there's a couple different organizations that teach it and that go around. And most of the community Stop the Bleed classes are actually free. So if you're ever interested in that in your own space, you can actually look up. There's a whole list of when people put their classes up, and you can go learn about what is a tourniquet, when can it be used. There's a ton of misconceptions about tourniquets specifically. It was like, oh, only last case scenario, like you're gonna lose the limb, and that's just not true. We have more information now. We have more knowledge, and it doesn't take much to learn it. It doesn't take much to share it, and it doesn't take much to be prepared for it. So that's just one example of something I want to be doing a lot more, especially through citizen operating systems. So Stop the Bleed right there.
There we go.
So it's this amazing initiative, and yep, and even if you go on YouTube, there's plenty of folks and medical types who've been putting out all kinds of information, again, for free over many years about how to deal with serious trauma. And I know I went kind of morbid and dark with the shootings, but this can also be a car accident, right?
Right.
It could be a work accident, if you're a construction worker or an iron worker or something. So just, going beyond that first aid level of like, okay, elevate this and that, and like knowing how to keep the blood in the body long enough for the professional to see it there. Also, self-defense and self-protection. This is kind of where the firearms know-how comes in. It's like, well, it can work for stage 2, but really, I like the idea of people being educated if they're going to go that route, and having more than just, oh, I have this magical talisman that is going to somehow magically protect me, but I have no knowledge of it, nor my body, nor how to think critically or assess quickly or move tactically or any of these things. And it can be something as simple as just knowing. I saw one of the workshops is improvised weapons.
Yep.
I love that. Like knowing what's around you that you could use and how to use it. Whether it's a weapon or a shield or this and that. And the parkour comes in because everyone's like, well, the responses are fight, flight, or freeze. So I prefer anything other than freeze. Freeze is no good. You're like, what do I do? So fight is obviously the improvised weapons and knife work and guns and all this stuff. Parkour is flight. Parkour is to me, it's a martial art, and it is the other half that I think not enough people focus on or practice, especially when they're thinking, oh, I'm a martial artist. Like, I don't know if you've ever taken self-defense classes.
Some here and there, yeah.
Anyone who's taken a self-defense class, the first rule is try to avoid the situation. But after that, like, if you can't avoid it, one of the first things people say is, if you can, run away. Run away.
Yep.
But how often do they actually practice running away in those classes?
True.
How often? Like, sometimes I think in Krav Maga can do a little bit better. Like, you'll get, like, they'll tell you to dash to the door or something. But as someone who's been teaching people how to run around and over and through things for a long time, it's not as easy as just run away a lot of the times. What do you do when you're in a narrow corridor? What do you do when you're in an elevator or a stairway? Like, what are the things that are going to actually help you get away? If you don't practice them, you're not going to know that. So
right.
All that and much, much more on the instruction side. And then actually pretty serendipitously, I got linked up with who's now my Shihan or sensei or whatever you want to call him. And he's made a bunch of personal protection details and executive protection details over the course of years. Like, he's been in the industry for decades. And someone who knew me recommended me to him. And so I've actually been training under him for months now to do executive protection. So one of the goals of my business is to create a bodyguard service and do bodyguarding and protection jobs and security. And then
Okay.
consulting, because if you practice all these things, you probably know about them, and sometimes people just want to know the info. So
True.
those are the kind of the 3 tiers of what I'm working for. Again, there's not much. I see you have the website up there. You're not going to see so much on there right now, and that's fine. You can also find my kind of day-to-day talk on my Instagram of the same name, Citizen Operating Systems. And slowly but surely, there will be more content and more things to look at with that. And
I hate the
that's
fact
it.
that
That was a little bit long-winded, but
no, it's perfect. Like it's stuff
yeah.
that is great. We want to know about, um, and are important
I
things
can't hear
to.
you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Nope.
Oh, okay. So my mic is okay. Um,
You can still hear me though.
I can still hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me now? That is really strange. I don't.
When my camera went off, it worked to go to the camera and mic settings to just change it. So maybe that can work. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. Hmm.
Maybe my oh here we go. Nope, it's still connected.
Folks, beauty of live broadcasting. You're good.
I want to hear you. This is terrible.
You're good.
I'm good.
I mean, okay.
Yeah, let's fix this. Come on, I wanna chat more. We can do it. Everyone knows what this is like these days. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
technology's not always perfect. We're not gonna get all dressed up and sit in front of the. Most people aren't even wearing pants half the time. Actually, that's probably an understatement. Most of the time, like everyone's like dressing up in nice this and this, and then you're just in your briefs or what have you. It's a good life.
Dang straight.
I actually quite like this quarantine. I mean, I don't like how people are struggling and how we're all struggling, so that's not good. But
Right.
the more casual nature and reconnection to ourselves as animals, it makes me a lot more happy about the world. Um, I'm gonna see if I can put it to my phone audio and see if that changes things. Okay.
Testing, testing,
This
testing.
is Streamlabs and fail us.
Hang tight with us, folks. We're trying to get back to you as soon as we can. I know you can hear both of us, but I want to make sure that Brandee can hear me, so we can actually have the conversation.
Womp womp. Yeah. Hang tight.
Yep. So, can you hear me at all?
Nope, can't hear you at all. I can see your mouth moving. I can read your lips, kind of. It's so weird. Like I checked my earphones and I checked everything else. I mean, in the meantime, I guess I can just yay technology. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yay technology. It's so fun.
Yay.
It's so cool. Like I'm very very grateful for it, but
Mm-hmm.
it can be very frustrating.
All right.
This issue
So,
happened for no clear reason at all, and that's just so fun. I was hoping it's better if you asked me a question, because otherwise I'll just ramble on about something random. Because I thought you had a couple questions left.
I'm gonna type in the thing.
Okay, go ahead and type them out. I'm into it.
So, folks, I'm gonna talk to you on the camera, but I'm gonna type the questions to Brandee.
Can other people hear you? What? All right, this is.
I can hear you. They can hear both. I don't know. All right. I wish I knew more sign language. They can hear us both. So I am going to type questions.
Adapt and overcome. Obstacles are opportunities. Okay, they can hear us both. Great. Works for me.
So,
that's so strange.
So thank you so much for telling us about your company, because all of what you are offering is super important in these crazy times. And folks who are watching, thank you for your patience.
Okay, now I get to try and find where you type. Oh, here we go. Tell us about the company. Yes. Yeah. I'm hoping we get something out of that, because there's so many there's so many terrible things in the world, and all the civil unrest and violence and wars and all this stuff. And honestly, it all comes down to understanding, compassion, and education. I mean, so much of hate is from ignorance. You just don't know better. And I like to think about ignorance as a neutral idea. It can turn negative when you start acting against somebody. But if you just don't know any better, then like, how are we gonna fix anything? You just have to be able to teach people better. A couple of things come to mind. Like, there's a fellow who, a black man who, turned a bunch of KKK guys off of their white supremacy, like by just being around and talking to them. Yeah, it's I wish I should have wrote his name down. He's got a couple TED Talks, and he's got definitely a documentary too. And he goes through like how he did that. He just showed up and showed them he was a person, just like them, that you could share things like jokes and they can enjoy each other. And that was it. And that's the idea with a lot of these things is people just don't know any better. They don't know how to connect to other humans. Also, things like being like wanting to help. I saw a video the other day of there was a fire truck trying to get through this neighborhood into this fire, but a car was in the way, and the driver was nowhere to be found. So a bunch of people just went out, picked up the car, and moved it so that the fire truck could get through. It's like, I know. It's like, what? Yeah, and that's beautiful, right? It's so beautiful. So that's kind of what I'm getting at with the citizen operating system. It's like, a citizen, if even being the citizen of the world, right? Your operating system needs a couple things. You need your software, and you need the hardware to run it. And we can optimize both of those. We can always be upgrading our software and our hardware. So like the physical aspect, your training, your parkour, your combat, your anything, yoga, anything that you're moving and feeling more confident in your body is your hardware, and then just your know-how and ways of thinking is the software. So I geek out on all kinds of stuff. Even carrying a flashlight, so many things you can do with a flashlight. Way more than just like, it's. I'm not gonna geek out about that right now, but this is the idea. It's like, here's a hardware, and there's so much software to go along with it. And yeah, people, when you're afraid too, like one of the best ways to stop feeling afraid and anxious is to feel prepared and to be prepared.
Yep.
And the people, those of us who can prepare and have certain things that we can do, that means we can also help the people who can't, because not everyone can run up walls physically. Like, it's not accessible to everyone, right? Not everyone has the mindset to think through certain problems. So ultimately, I love the team. The idea of a team, like, it's one of the coolest things to me. And all the shows I've ever watched, all the movies, like, you have your like hacker nerd, you have your commando guy, and you have your your like stealth person, or you think of RPGs, right? There's the rogue, and then there's the wizard. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, Citizen is, I like City Zen. I like that the Zen is in there too, because really, like, the part of the diseases of civilization has come because we have created these cities, these citizenries, like, having agriculture easily accessible, having, our nutrition has gone down here, and our motion exercise has gone down here, and our all the other stuff has gone up, and so we're doing things that our bodies aren't necessarily built for. And we're having to learn how to adapt to that. So, this is why I go back to things like in parkour, there's more than just, people say be strong to be useful, but you can also be smart to be useful. You can be compassionate to be useful. You can just be present to be useful as long as you choose to do that, right? As long as you have the willpower or the decision that you make to actually do something in that situation. A lot of people have heard about the bystander effect. That's a big one for me. They talk about it a lot in first aid classes, where the bystander effect, especially now, where people everyone's filming, but no one's doing anything. And then as soon as one person goes in and does something, then a bunch of people, right? And so I want to be able to create that first person. Another group calls it Citizen Zero, like the first one to just go and start and break that chain and start the action. I saw another amazing video again the other day where someone had crashed their car and the car started burning, like the classic like bursting into flames. They're passed out, and then all these other people are coming and trying to pry open this, like not first responders, just people working to pry open this car and get this person out, and they're all just like diving into these flames for this person they don't even know, you know. And that's the thing, is one person did it, and then people felt confident and like they could too. So we just have to be that first person.
Dang straight, yes.
Ideally, if you can, if it's safe for you, right? There's times where it, obviously, you know, you got to be smart and keep yourself safe. Otherwise, you can't help anybody.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So I think we are gonna wrap up a bit.
I miss your voice already. This is so weird.
So we're gonna wrap up a bit. Thank you so much.
That sounds good.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you
much
for having me, and yeah, we'll see y'all on the workshops.
I'm trying to get to if you don't get a chance to work with Brandee with us, check out this. This is the company that Brandee works for as well. So you just go ahead and talk. Let's see.
Should I talk about the PKB? Okay, yeah. So PKB is Parkour Visions is the nonprofit that I mentioned earlier. 501c3 status. We've been working in Seattle for a long time. We started in 2007. And if you want to learn more parkour stuff, we do have an online thing going on, so you can actually see some of the tutorials I've been making for Parkour Visions. parkourvisions.org. There's a couple options for membership, and we do have online classes. I'm not teaching any of them like live at this point in time, but there's definitely a ton of content. And again, very beginner oriented, very beginner friendly. Like we're looking, like what we want to see is people who feel like they can and know they can learn parkour for themselves in just anywhere they are. So that's the mission of Parkour Visions, is to make parkour accessible. So yeah, do check that out if you're trying to, you know, jump off stuff or not jump off stuff. Yeah, or slide over stuff, or you know, slip around the ladder. We get weird.
right up our alley. I don't know if you can quite hear me, but yeah, right up our alley as well. Yeah. Thank you again so much.
So welcome. Thanks for having me.
And for anyone who is still watching, don't forget to, if you have questions after the fact that you want to ask Brandee or ask the workshop, make sure you email us at the workshop email. Make sure you register as a student. Register as a student as soon as possible. Class signups are starting to go pretty quickly. Jacqueline did want to say hi. And thank you again so much for joining us. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. All right. Catch you later.